First contact's precise silence fell over the Moni Observatory as Dr. Elena Rodriguez gaped at her instruments in shock. The solar flare she'd been following wasn't just immense, it was apocalyptic. Humanity had under 72 hours before the electromagnetic surge would shred Earth's atmosphere, erasing 4 billion years of life in an instant. "Transmit the data to all major observatories," she commanded, her voice calm though her hands trembled. "Alert everyone. We need global confirmation." Within hours, the horrifying reality was clear. The flare would strike with the might of 1,000. Nuclear blasts and Earth had zero protection. As global governments scrambled to react to the oncoming extinction-level threat, the unimaginable occurred. Something entered Earth's orbit. A ship alien in design merged from what looked like a rupture in space itself. Its crystal-like hull shimmered with impossible colors, scattering light in patterns no human eye had ever seen before. Sunlight in impossible patterns, it was manly, the size of Manhattan, and unlike anything humanity had ever built or imagined. The world's military power scrambled their forces, but before any could react, a message reached every communications device on Earth simultaneously. "We are the Moravians." The transmission began translated perfectly into every human language we have. "Been watching your world for some time. The stellar event approaching your planet will destroy all life on your surface. We cannot allow this." The ship's purpose became clear as it positioned its between Earth and the Sun. Its crystalline surface began to pulse with energy, creating a shield of pure light hat stretched across space like an aurora. When the solar flare hit the Meridian vessel, absorbed the full force of the blast, the ship's shields held butat, a terrible cost as the danger passed. The vessel's magnificent crystalline surface began to crack and dim. A final message reached Earth. "Our ship's power core is destabilizing. We must leave your orbit immediately. Our civilization as Dingersun failed centuries ago, and we have been searching the galaxy for a new home. This vessel contained the last of our energy reserves. We give this freely to your world, knowing it means we can continue our search. Your species shows great promise. Remember." This day, before Yan could respond, the damaged ship vanished into another spatial tier, leaving behind only fragments of its crystalline hull that fell like shooting stars through Earth's atmosphere. Through world's greatest scientists scrambled to cover these fragments, finding them composed of materials that defied known physics. Each shard contained more technological advancement than humanity had achieved in its entire history, but more than technology, the Moravians Hajivan humanity. Something else, a profound lesson in sacrifice and a debt that could never be truly repaid. Dr. Rodriguez, the initial research team studying Meridian technology they could have used this energy to save themselves, shuttled the United Nations Security Council instead. They chose to save us. A species they had never met. We owe them everything. The fragments, revolutionist in technology, within a decade humanity learned to harness new forms of energy, created their first faster-than-light drives, and begun to understand the fundamental forces of that universe in ways they never before. But they never forgot the price of their survival. Every school child learned about the Meridian sacrifice. Every new spacecraft carried a crystalline memorial. Humanity expanded into space with a singular purpose: to find the Meridian sand, repay their debt. They established Stellar Observation Network, a massive array of telescopes and sensors designed to search for any sign of Thetian civilization. 20 years passed. Humanity spread across their solar system, establishing colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. They built ships that could reverse light years in days, but of the Meridians they found no Trizanto. One day at a remote listening post in the Kuiper Belt, a young technician picked up a familiar energy signature. It matched the crystalline fragment sexily somewhere across the vast expanse of space. The Meridians still existed, and now humanity had the means to find them. As Dr. Rodriguez, now director of the United Earth Space Agency, reviewed the data, she smiled. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "It's time to repay our debt." The race to Sabbath Meridians was about to begin, but no one could have predicted the terrible threat that awaited humanity in the dark between the stars, or how their quest to Savi, their saviors, would change the galaxy forever. The silent hunters, Admiral Sarah Chin, stood at the bridge of the U.S. Prometheus Humanities Mastodvan's starship staring at the holographic display with growing her orb for her floated the image of a dead star system, not naturally dead but murdered. "Play it again," she ordered, her voice. Barely a whisper, the sensor log showed the same impossible. Seen dark bike structures surrounding the systems. Sun literally drinking its energy until nothing remained but a cold dark husk. The Prometheus had been following the Meridian energy signature for 3 months when they discovered this graveyard of walls. 5 planets on Satine, with life now frozen in eternal winter, their sun once like Earth's own reduced to a black cinder. Admiral, her science officer, Dr. James Patel, approached with a tablet we've analyzed. The structures there artificial, but unlike anything we've ever seen. They appear to be organic technology living machines that feed directly on stellar energy. Sarah's mindrist back to her Academy days, 2 thestries of the Meridians and their dying sun. Could this be what happened to the Meridian? Homeworld, she wondered aloud. A sudden alert pierced the bridge's tense atmosphere. Multiple spatial distortions decked the sensor officer, shouted some things. Coming through, the crew watched in stunned silence as massive shapes emerged from the void. They were beautiful in their terrible way, like living shadows given form, their surfaces rippling with patterns that hurt the eye to look at. Where they passed, the very starlight seemed to dim void stalkers. Dark Patel breathed, naming humanity's new enemy. They're not just feeding on stars, they're hunting them. Hunting civilizations. The Prometheus's stealth systems, reverse engineered from Meridian technology, kept them hidden. As they observed the cosmic predators, the void stalkers moved with terrible deploying their energy-draining webs, askly prepared to claim another star track. Their trajectory, Sarah ordered. Where are they heading? The answer came moments later, and it chilled her to the bone. The void stalkers were moving toward the source of the Meridian energetic nature, toward the last survivors off civilization that had saved Earth. Sarah called an emergency conference with the ship's senior staff. The Meridians sacrificed their last energizers to save us from a solar flare, reminded them. Now we know why they were so desperate to find a new home. These things destroyed their civilization, and they're still hunting survivors. We can't fight them conventionally. Dr. Patel explained this. Plain displaying their sensor data, they absorb any weapons, and their organic technology adapts to any damage. They've probably been doing this for millions of years, consuming civilizations to fuel their eternal hunger. Then we don't fight conventionally, Sarah declared. She pulled up the schematics for Project Helios, humanity's most closely guarded secret. 20 years ago, the Meridians showed us how to manipulate stellar energy. We learned more than they intended. We learned how to create it. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Project Helios was opposed to be humanity's solution to eternal energy needs, artificial star secreted through technology derived from Meridian crystals, but Sarah saw an author use for it now. These hunter-shave never faced a prey that could fight back on their level, she said. They manipulate stellar energy fine wheel, give them more than they can handle. She opined, a channel to Earth Kamank, knowing her next words would change the course of human history. This is Admiral Chen. The Meridians are in danger and we've found what drove them from their home. Request immediate authorization. Toypulment Project Helios as a weapon system. We're going hunting. As the Prometheus raced back to Earth to prepare for the coming battle, Sarah watched the dead star system recede in tith distance. The void stalkers had hunted the Meridians across the galaxy, drawing countless civilizations in their wake, but they had never encountered humans before, and humans remembered their debts. The real war was about to begin, and this time the hunters would learn what it meant to become the-hunted. Operation Starkeeper. The massive shipyards orbiting Mars hummed with unprecedented activity. Dr. Ellen Daradriggs, now in her 70s, faux sharp as ever, watched as engineers installed the experimental Helios cores into Thefleet's flagship vessels. Each core contained the power of a miniature sun built from the knowledge gleaned from those crystalline fragments that had fallen to Earth 2 decades ago. Will it work? Admiral Chen asked, floating beside her in the observation dome. The Twalman had become unlikely friends during a frantic preparations for humanity's most ambitious military operation. The physics are sound, Alina replied, her wrinkled hands tracing the equations floating in the holographic display. But about to do something that's never been attempted, create artificial stasis weapons. The void stalkers feed on stellar energy. Yes, but What happens when they try Takensu more than they can handle? Deplin was audacious project Helios had been designed to create sustainable and miniature stars for colony power. Generation now they were modifying the technology to create unstable stellar masses, cosmic bombs that could overwhelm. Voidstalker's energy, absorbankabilis. The operation had drawn resources from every human colony and settlement mining outposts. In Thestroid belt work around the clock to provide raw materials, the Mars Colonishad converted their entire industrial capacity to worship production. Even Thelinar bases have been transformed into training facilities for the fleet crews 6 months. Sarah amused watching another Helios core being loaded 6 months. Since you discovered them and were about to wage war on beings that have probably existed longer than our species, Illinois mild. Humanity's greatest strength is Arctic technology, or our resources. It's our ability to adapt, to take an impossible situation and turn it on its head. The Voidstalkers have never faced an enemy that could fight them on their own terms. The final preparations moved swiftly. The fleet consisted of 30 ships each, equipped with a Helios core, and crews trained to use them. The largest vessel, the Use Meridian Pride Carrieth Operations secret weapon, a modified Helio, were capable of generating a full-size stellar mass as the launch date approached. They received new intelligence from the stealth probus monitoring the Voidstalkers. The cosmic predators were closing in on their target, a distant solar system showing zins of meridian energy signatures they had perhaps 2 weeks before the hunters reached their prey. The night before launch, Sarah stood before the assembled fleet crews in the Mars Orbital Station's main hangar. Thousands Thephases looked back at her, representing Vori nation and colony of humanity. 20 years ago, a dying civilization chose Tosavi, us instead of themselves, she began, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. They gave us their last hope at their final reserves of energy, Eskingnithan. In return, they showed us what it means to sacrifice everything for Anather. Species survival, she gestured, Tuthfleek visible through the hangar's massive windows. Now we have a chance to repay that debt. But this isn't just about obligation. This is about how as a species, when the Meridians saved us, they bet on humanity's potential. Believed we were worth saving. The Voidstalkers have existed for eons, consuming civilizations, destry worlds. They believe they're at apex predators of the cosmos, but hive never encountered humans before. They've never faced a species that could turn their own weapons against them. The Vive never met prey that hunts back. Chamber erupted in cheers as Sarah raised her hand. Operation Starkeeper begins. At dawn, we carry with us humanity's best technology, our finest warriors, and our most powerful weapons, but more importantly, we carry the legacy to civilizations our own, and the one that believed in us enough to sacrifice everything. The Voidstalkers think they hunting the last of the Meridians, since they're about to face humanity, and we're going to teach them why that's a mistake they won't survive to regret. As the crews dispersed to their ship, Selena caught Sarah's arm. The Meridians saved us with their dying light, the old Chantis said softly. How fitting that we'll save them by creating new ones. Dawn came to Mars. 30 ships lifted from their moorings there, Helios cores humming with contained stellar fire as they forward up for the jump to faster than light speed. Sarah sent one final message to Earth Command. Operation Starkeeper is go. We're about to remind the galaxy why you should never underestimate humanity. Chinout. The fleet vanished into the darkness. Bet when the stars carrying with them humanity's answer to the cosmic predators that had hunted the Meridians for so long, the time had come to turn hunters into the hunted. The light of Fuminati human fleet dropped out of faster than light travel at the edge of the target system. Before them lay a sight no one had ever witnessed. A Meridian world planet glowed with a soft crystalline light, its cities looking like constellations against the surface, but the beauty of the scene was mirrored by the approaching shadows of the Voidstalkers, their massive forms already beginning to weave their energy-draining webs around the system's sun. Multiplo contacts. The tactical officer of the Meridian's Pride announced, counting 15 Voidstalker vessels, each larger than anything we've encountered before. Admiral Chen stood at the command center, her face illuminated by the holographic battle display. They've already begun their feeding process, she noted, watching dark webs expand. Launch the probuslays. See if our theories about their hunting patterns are correct. Dozens. Off-smell unmanned vessels shot forth from the human fleet, each carrying a miniature. Helios core programmed to activate on command. The Void Stalkers detecting the new energy sources immediately turned their attention to Hat. They perceived as easy prey. They're taking the bait, Dr. Paddle reported from a science station. Their energy absorption fields are redirecting toward our probes. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Now we see if hunger truly is their weakness. All ships execute pattern Sunforge. The human fleet split into 3 groups, moving with precision that would have been impossible without 20 years of practicing with married and derived technology as the Void Stalkers moved to intercept the probes. Gave Thecamond. They'd all been waiting for detonate the probes. The miniature
activated
simultaneously, each one releasing the energy of a small star. The Void Stalkers, their feeding apparatus already engaged, found themselves Forcetto absorbed far more power than they had anticipated. Several of their smaller vessels began to rupture their organic technology, unable to process the sudden surge of energy, but the larger hunters adapted quickly, their forms shifting to Connell. The excess power they turned toward the human fleet, their surfaces rippling with stolen stellar energy. They charging some kind of weapon. Tactical warrant. Energy rereadings, area off the scale. All ships execute evasive pattern. Delta Sarah ordered deploy solar shields. The human vessels scattered as beams of concentrated stellar energy lanced through space where they'd be moments before their shields. Designating principles learned from the original Meridian vessel held against onslaught but glowed dangerously hot. The surface of the crystalline planet bellow lights began to flicker as the Meridian colony detected the battle above. A transmission reached the human fleet, the same perfect translation technology they used 20 years ago, making message clear. Unknown vessels. Why detect human energy signatures? Why have all come to this place of exile? Sarah hoping to channel we are the children of Earth, here to repay a debt to decayed soul. Your people saved our world nowhere. Here to save yours. There was a moment of silence. Then the hunters have found us. There is no escape. Save yourselves. That's not how human auto-parrots, Sarah replied. Dr. Rodriguez. Are you ready? Thea's voice came over the comm from her position in the engineering bay of the Meridian. Pride Helia Prime is charged. We'll only get in shot at this. Sarah turned to her tactical display. The Void Stalkers were regrouping their larger vessels, moving to shield the damaged ones. They were learning, adapting, just as humans had learned and adapted from the Meridians. All ships form up on the Pride Executio daybreak. The human fleet movedas, one forming a sphere around their flagship. The Meridian's Pride's massive Helios core began to pulse with blinding light as it initiated its primary function, not to create a small stable star, but to trigger a controlled stellar nova. The Void Stalker sensed thibbling energy and rushed forward, their hunger overwhelming their caution. This was exactly what Sarah had counted. Anno, she commanded the Helios Prime, core released its full power for a brief minute. A new star blazed in the heart off the human fleet. The Void Stalkers committed to their attack found themselves caught in their own feeding webs, unable to process the sheer magnitude of energy being forced to enter their systems. The result was spectacular. The largest Void Stalkers began to break apart their organic technolog Uvarange as they desperately tried to contain the power of a newborn star. The smaller ones simply disintegrated, their matter converted to pure energy by the stellar forces they tried to consume. As slight faded, the human fleet emerged from behind their combined shields. Off 15 Void Stalkers, only debris remained. Cross space like black confetti. Status report. Sarah ordered, blinking spots from her eyes. Helios Prime eyes depleted but stable. Alina reported all ships reporting in. We have many Malchus Walties, mostly from radiation export. The Meridian colony is intact. Sarah looked at the crystalline world bellow.
Aldous.
Its lights now burning bright and steady. Another transmission came from the surface. What you have done, it shouldn't have been possible. How Sarah smiled, thinking of that day 20 years ago when Adian ship had saved her world. Your people taught us that sometimes the impossible is simply waiting for someone willing to tempt it. Welcome to a galaxy where the Void Stalkers are no longer the apex predators. The light-off system's natural sun seemed brighter somehow as the human Fleet moved to establish contact with the Meridian colony. They had done what no other civilization had managed in millions. O fears, they had beaten the hunters of their own game, and they had done it. Not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through the very thing that had saved Earth so long ago's willingness to risk everything. Tosavi, another species legacy of two worlds a year after the battle. Of the Meridian colony, the crystalline spire Suf, new aurora rose from the surface of Mars, its architecture a stunning blend of human and Meridian design. Within its great assembly hall, representatives from both species gathered to witness a historic moment. Dr. Alina Rodriguez, now confined to a hovered chair, but her mind as brilliant as ever, watched with prettiest Admiral Sarah Chen and the Meridian High Chancellor. A beam of living crystalline light signed the stellar Concordath document. Wasn't just a treaty, it was a promise of a shared future between two civilizations that had each staved Theothar. Let the record show. The Chancellor's melodious voice resonated the chamber that on this day with formalize not just an alliance, but a recognition of a truth we have forgotten. Our long exile, that strength lies not in isolation, but in the bonds we forgo with others. The Meridian delegation, loaded with spell colors that humans had learned to recognize as joy, their civilization once on the brink of extinction, was flowering again. The combined knowledge of human innovation and Meridian wisdom had already yielded remarkable fruits in orbit above Mars. First of the new Helios arrays was nearing completion. Unlike the weapon that had destroyed the void stalker seas were designed to create stable, sustainable, artificial stars. The technology would allow both species to establish colonies and systems that had lost their natural suns to the hunter predation. We thought ourselves dying. Chancellor continued, our last act of significance being the salvation of Aeong species. We barely knew, instead of act became the seed of our own resurrection. Human ingenuity took our final gift and transformed it into something we never imagined possible. Sarah stepped forward to address the assembly. 20 years ago, humanity looked upon the stars and knew we were not alone. Learned this not through violence or conquest, but through an act of sacrifice. Saved our entire world. The Meridians could have used their last energy reserves to save themselves instead. They chose to save us. Gestured to the massive window Virl, the Martian landscape where human and Meridian buildings stood side by side. We promised ourselves we would repay that debt, but in doing so, we discovered something far more valuable than mere repayment. We found a friendship that will reshape the galaxy. In the years that followed, the partnership between humans and Meridians led to achievements neither species could have accomplished alone. The Helios arrays brought light to darkness, terraforming technically restored worlds the Voidstalkers had left for dead, and faster than light travel became more efficient than ever before. But perhaps the most profound change was cultural. Humanitized a monstrian of loyalty. Their determination to repay a debt across decades and light years attracted deity, and to see a tecto tension from other spacefaring races that had hidden themselves from the Voidstalkers. The galaxy they discovered was full of intelligent life, all of it connected by the hunter's long reign after roar. As Alina watched new aurora grow from her laboratory window, she often reflected on that terrible day when she had first detected the solar flare that should have ended humanity. The Meridians had saved Earth, knowing men sacrificing their own future. Humanity had saved the Meridians, knowing they might lose everything. In the attempt, Booth Gambles had paid off Bayan Danyan's wildest dreams. One evening, a slurficial sun set behind the Martian mountains. Alina received a visitor. It was one of her Meridian students, a young crystalline being who had been studying human history. Teacher's student asked, their form shimmering with curiosity. I understand why you help us. You were repaying a debt, but why did our ancestors save Earth? They had never met humans. They couldn't have known you would help us in return. Elasmold. Remembering the shooting stars that had been fragments of that first Meridian ship, sometimes she said, the greatest acts of wisdom come not from calculation, but from hope. Your ancestors looked at our world and saw potential not just for survival, but for something. Griadathi took a chance on humanity. She gestured to the city around them. where humans and Meridians worked side by side, build a future neither species could have imagined alone, and humanity took a chance on you in return. That's the real legacy of our two worlds, not the technology we've created or the enemies we've defeated, but the trust we placed in each other in the end. That trust gave birth to something remarkable, a future where no species need face the darkness alone. The student glowed with understanding as they looked out over a city in the distance. A new ship was launching its crew, a mixture of human sand Meridians. They were heading out to help another recently discovered Divisionisha rebuild their world, carrying with them the lesson that had changed everything. In a galaxy full of hunters and darkness, the greatest power isn't the ability to consume or destroy, it's the willingness to save others, to repay debts, and to believe in the potential of those you've never met. That was the light that had defeated the Void Stalkers, and it was the light that would guide both species forward into an uncertain but promising future together.